Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Deckin Around Deck Specs. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Hops Barley Playing Cards from Jocu. But before we jump into it, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
And ring the bell.
So this deck is printed by Cardamondi on their B9 Slimline stock. There are two different editions. You can see there's the red and the yellow standard editions, which both retail for $13. And then the copper and brown Brewer's Reserve edition, which retails for $38. The standards are part of an unspecified print run, whereas the Brewer's Reserve is actually part of a 1,000 limited print run. So let's check this deck out. So I have to say, one of the coolest things about the Brewer's Reserve here is that the tuck box itself is actually made from the brewing byproducts when you brew beer. So they collect all of the mash and everything after the fact once the beer is made, and they make it into paper, which just makes this like a next level thematic deck. The copper foil on this is absolutely spectacular, and for anyone who isn't aware, the cool thing about the Brewer's Reserve is not only is the tuck foiled copper, but the cards themselves are foiled copper as well. You have this awesome, like, limited one-off print run thick stock ad card from Jocu, which actually has your number for the deck on it, so you don't know what your number is until you open it. And then you can see this gorgeous, gorgeous foil that Cardamondi does. I have to say, you know, they're one of my favorite foil producers for cards right now. They feel great, they handle great, and they just look spectacular. They may not be the most innovative currently, but the handling plus that execution is just amazing. There's two Ace of Spades in the deck, a really stylized Ace of Spades, which is kind of thematic to the deck, and then one which is in the style of the pips, which you can see is an interesting split style design. All of the courts are custom courts, and they have fun little additions to them, like holding the wheat on the queen there. There's little, like, again, thematic feels to them. While still being relatively standard, you can tell these are all actually hand-drawn by Alessandra, the designer for this deck.
Yeah, so cool. I love how she definitely takes the time and does all custom court cards for the decks.
Yeah, she really does a great job with it too, and there's so much depth to them, which is one of the things I really like, because it's not just like the same jack face in different positions. There's character to each and every court.
Yeah.
So one of the really cool things about this as well, like I mentioned, the fact that these are obviously beer themed. The deck itself just reminds me, and I think the reason that they went with the copper for the Brewer's Reserve is the old school tradition of brewing with like copper stills, which you can see represented throughout the whole deck, but that copper foil bringing it all together, something about this deck just really screams for a love of beer. Like, for people who really enjoy the brewing process, this deck touches on so many points that really just resonate so nicely.
Yeah.
I think they really did a great job with it. I love the artwork to it. I love the fact that even for being such an ornate deck, the simplicity of the courts really allows you to still use this for pretty much any purpose. You could play poker with this deck. You could use it for Magic. Granted, at the retail price point, it's not really a worker's deck, but there's nothing really holding you back other than the flash aspect of it. The flashiness aspect of it more so than the flash, but I think there's really just so much beauty and artwork to this as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that this deck is definitely a deck that you could, you're hanging around your friends and you're having, because people have craft beer parties all the
Yeah.
time, and I think this will be definitely a dope deck to pull out and, play poker or whatever, gin or whatever games you're going to play. But it definitely has such a cool vibe that you're kind of hanging out at some of the beer spots.
Absolutely, and I think, at the retail price of 13 for the two standard editions, they're a perfect table deck. Obviously, they don't have the foil on the back, and the tuck is pretty reserved. You can see it right there. It's still got that beautiful coloring, like, contrast to it. It really has a nice kind of almost vintage vibe to them. They handle and feel just as great being B9 Slimline stock as well, which makes them a little bit more of an everyday deck if you really wanted it. I think the really cool thing about this, though, too, is even though it's outside of the normal style for Jocu, they're actually still very nature-oriented decks. Anyone who knows the Jocu Playing Cards, a lot of their stuff is very natural-oriented. You have the Green Man and the Onda. This still fits that so well because hops and barley. What, it's the agricultural nature of the world. Hops and barley and wheat are just things that are grown not only for sustenance but also for brewing, which just I think is so cool.
Yeah, I mean they're literally hands down one of the coolest designs on their tuck cases, this year for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone
Yeah.
for checking out this episode of Deckin Around Deck Specs. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We drop these every Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday, giving you the freshest looks at the newest decks.
Peace.